Muy buenas tardes, mi gente. Today is Thursday, June 6, 2024. Y aquí con ustedes otra vez la comadre B with another episode of Comadreando aquí y con café. First of all, I would love to send out my saludos. Hi to my mom. And I would also like to take this time a mandarle un saludo grande a toda esa raza que no tiene summer break. All our hard workers that don't know what summer break is since school. Yeah, a lot of us in the workforce ya no conocemos spring break, Christmas break, summer break, you know, all those breaks that come along with having a break. If you found me by accident here on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell for my weekly uploads. If you rather listen than watch, I am also on Spotify. You will find me under Comadreando by La Comadre B. Before we get into the second part of my Zoot series, I would like to take this moment as a trigger warning. The following will have graphic details not suitable for a younger audience. This is your warning. You've been apprised. So guys, this is my part 2. As I mentioned in yesterday's episode, I'm going to divide it into 3 different parts of this very dark time in Los Angeles history known as the Zoot Riots. If you did not catch the episode before this one, I will catch you guys up on exactly where we left off and what was the part that broke all hell loose. So yes, this is a refresher. On the night of June 3rd, 1943, there was a total of 11 sailors that were on a bus in downtown Los Angeles, on Main Street to be exact. They came to their stop, their destination. They got off this bus, and as they were making their way to their final destination, they came up on a group of young Mexican Americans wearing Zoot suits, so they assumed they were pachucos. Once these two groups collided, they started a huge argument, very big. There was shouting and screaming and in-your-face kind of action, insults of all kind, mainly, you know, racist ones, blah blah blah. After a few minutes, when both these groups had enough of their arguing and shouting and, you know, name calling and stuff, each group was on their way to what would have been their destination for that evening. A couple of blocks down, the sailors ran into the police department, the LAPD. They go and lie, because that's what they did. They lied. They told the police department, we just ran into a group of pachucos right here on Main Street in downtown. We got jumped. They beat us up. Look at us. We are, beat up. They hit us. They this, they that, blah, blah, blah. They made it sound bad when none of this really happened, right? Well, the police waste no time. They hurry up and made their way downtown to Main Street. A lot of the officers responded within minutes. A lot of off-duty officers also made their way down to respond to this horrific situation that had just went down. They were what is known as the Vengeance Squad. They were like the gang unit of that time. So all these officers made their way to downtown to clean up this big mess, meaning remove the pachucos, yada, yada, yada. You guys get the idea of what happened night 1 of these Zoot riots. Alright guys, so those were the efforts that were taken to begin the cleanup of these pachucos, this gangs, these little neighborhood kids that they did not want on the street. Alright, so we are now on day 2, which is June 4th, 1943. This is where it gets ugly. It gets really, really ugly. Alright guys, so as you can only imagine, things escalated quickly. Pronto, bien pronto. By the evening time, there was 200 sailors within the area that had taken taxis y hasta iban en caravana down to East Los Angeles. Okay, according to them, ya andaban enojados. They felt a certain way about this group of hoodlums that were unpatriotic. So they were using this as the perfect opportunity to attack. So en ese plan iban en plan de ataque. Their main target were the Pachucos, the young Mexicans. They were looking at minorities. They were looking at literally anybody in a zoot suit or even just a jacket and pants for that matter. Estos iban, like I said, beast mode, listos to destroy. Things were so freaking out of control. You had these grown men, these sailors, that were beating all these young kids with full-on bats and clubs and literally finding any object they can get their hands on to throw at these kids, at these young men, and use it as a weapon. Can you just imagine what this looked like, the scene that this was like? Not only were they beating the living crap out of them, how else can you describe it? They were stripping their clothes off of these kids after giving them these horrific beatings. So wherever you were getting beat down, ahí te encueraban, te quitaban tu ropa. They were making these piles of this clothes, these suits that were so offensive to these servicemen, and they were setting them on fire, guys, in the middle of the street, in the sidewalk, wherever they were getting a couple, 3, 4 kids that they got their clothes, stripped them nude and had their clothes right there. That's where they were lighting matches and just burning their clothes. Things were beyond scary, raza. If you were any shade of brown, you were a target. If you were wearing a zoot suit, pachuco or not, you were a target. Like I mentioned, just the simple fact of wearing a jacket with pants, you were a target. These servicemen were attacking left and right. We had police officers that were standing pretty, ahí parados viendo todo el desmadre, not getting involved. Some of them that were involved were attacking the raza. Their whole excuse was they were acting in self-defense. Okay, after the evening was playing out, there was even some civilians. They weren't involved, but they were witnessing a lot of stuff, and they were standing there in complete horror. This freaking scene looked like it was out of a straight movie. And they were telling some officers, like, hey, step in. They're gonna kill these kids. The officer said, no. Bien sinvergüenza, decían, no, like, we're not gonna intervene. This is a matter for the military police to handle. How could they? How could you? How could there be so much hate for no reason? Like, seriously, just because these kids are wearing these suits and because they have this fama of being bad, and whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty, guys. Who knows? Who knows? Pero esto estaba bien feo. Like, I can't even stress to you guys how horrible this is. I always tell you, my people, always think of situations as if you were on the other foot. Imagine that was your father. My men followers, imagine that was you. You're getting beat up just by simply trying to get home. Your sons. It was just one of the worst, unjust times that you can ever imagine. As the evening continued, even later, we had a full force of servicemen, not just sailors anymore, the Navy. We also had the Marines, we had soldiers, all these other civilians que andaban todavía de metiche. So it was just a full-on war, not just a quick little fight. No, this was like a war. As this evening, like I said, played off, even the freaking taxi service of the area were in on this freaking horrific event that was taking place. Estos pinches taxis were bringing in carloads of these servicemen to be part of this damn shit show. What the hell is wrong with these freaking taxi people? It got to the point that evening, suit or no suit. If you were Mexicano, if you were a minority, you were gonna get attacked. This very angry mob of the cleanup crew were now on the march. They're on the move through town. They were doing downtown LA, East Los Angeles, the neighboring cities. They were now actually going into establishments to pick victims. They were going into the theaters. They were going into restaurants. They were going into the stores, even hotels. Wherever they thought they can go catch a victim, they were doing so. There is a witness, a story on an article I read. A woman speaks of being at the theater with her date. The guy got beat up. They stripped his clothes. She was scared because there are 3 guys beating on her date. She's scared, she's screaming. She got hit too because she was being loud. What kind of men are these that put hands on women, you know? Just the simple thought that they were ganging up on all these kids, these people, is one thing. But to be beating down on women también, like seriously, no tienen madre. Reason or not, what was the deal behind that? There was zero to no regards towards their victims. Because that's what they were. They were victims. Okay, not only were they beating them viciously, not only were they sitting there stripping them of their clothes, like humiliating them, some of these servicemen were even urinating on these guys. Why would anyone in their right mind want to urinate on anybody else? That is beyond disrespectful. That is beyond disgusting. Now we're entering days 3 and 4, and things are the same, if not worse. Now this violence took a different turn. Not only were they not content with beating the daylights out of these kids, these people, the urinating still wasn't good enough for them. Now they were actually trying to set human beings on fire. Yes. By day number 4, there was actual newspapers released with articles in their headlines, this and that, actually saying how to de-zoot a zoot suitor. What the hell is wrong with this newspaper, with these article writers? Why add fuel and violence to what is already something completely out of control? How is any of this fair? How was any of this justifiable? I don't know. Like I said, to me it just seemed like it was a pretext to let loose on nothing but racial hate. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Leave me a comment on the bottom. I don't know. That's how I see it. That's how I interpret this whole freaking mess. Oakland, yeah, up in the Bay, was even all involved. their newspapers out there, their headlines were reading, oh, servicemen and police officers are bravely acting as protectors. Protectors against who? Like, with who or what? Like, wow. We're saying, the headlines read, protectors of the city against the dangerous Zoot suitors. Other headlines read, gentlemen in blue, merely responding to vicious attacks by the Zoot suit bums on wives of Navy men. One Navy officer even explained that they were going to clean up what the police had failed to clean up all this time. By all this time, I'm meaning August of 1942, which is what kind of set off this match. But that, raza, will be another day, another episode. I know I have briefly spoke to you guys about Jose Diaz. I will get into depth with that whole story because it is an episode of its own. Anyways, according to the community, because of the death of Jose Diaz that had happened in August of the year before, 1942, a lot of the pachucos from Calle 38 were supposedly the ones giving all the Mexicans in the area the bad reputation. Remember, we spoke of this yesterday. Well, when all these news articles started coming out, there was a supposedly report that had been filed about 3 weeks ago prior to the beginning of these riots that supposedly a gang of pachucos had raped one of the sailors' wives. Why was it never made big? Why was it never made public? Who knows? What sailor? ¿Quién sabe? ¿Cuál mujer? ¿Quién supo? That was the rumor they were starting. That was the story they were sticking to because, of course, it looked convenient, having an actual reason why, they're targeting all these guys. So that is what they ran with. Well, it worked. That little story of the supposed sexual attack fueled anger in a lot of these servicemen. This mob was no longer just in the LA area. Now they are, like I told you guys, migrating. And they're going through all the communities. And they were targeting, I should say, the black communities. They ended up in Watts. There was a teen at that time that lived there in Watts. And he, with a part of other teens, decided to come up with a defense attack method that worked very, very well. What Rudy Leyva and his boys would do was they would send a group of their friends, about 10 of them, to stand in the middle of the street as bait. So as the servicemen are marching or driving by, they would spot these kids and run up on them and think they were going to beat the life out of them as well. And when that would happen, as soon as Rudy Leyva and his boys would see that there were servicemen approaching the bait in the middle of the street, all these young kids, these men, would come out from the woodworks, the shadows, you name it, and they were fighting these servicemen back. Era un desmadre, but it was a successful one because for the first time during these 3-4 days, this group was the first one that was able and willing to actually gang up and fight back. Genius, I think. So much more happened. Like I mentioned, this was a very dark period in Los Angeles history. There was no deaths associated with these riots, but there was 150 plus injuries. Explaining to you guys about this throwing of everything possible. You can just imagine the seriousness of these injuries. Explaining to you guys that these kids were getting set on fire. You can imagine, again, the seriousness of these injuries. It was a horrible time to be a Mexicano or a minority here in Los Angeles. Alright guys, con eso los dejo el día de hoy. I do hope that I brought new light to you. I want you guys to see how horribly the Pachucos of that time suffered. How horrible and unjustifiable our young Mexican American youth in that time suffered. Other minorities suffered. Like I keep saying, fue algo exagerado. The amount of hate, the amount of injuries that was caused by all this hate was fabricated on lies and spread over due to exaggeration. There's no other way to put it in words, guys. Tomorrow, I will get into it with you guys. La Calle 38, the role the Pachucas played in this whole scenario. And I will close it up eventually with Jose Diaz and the Sleepy Lagoon murder. Yes, guys, there is so much history behind this. Nomás con decirles that Rita Hayward was even involved with this situation. It was big, guys. It was really, really big. Alright, que pasen muy bonitas tardes. Con esto los dejo otra vez, for reals now. Stay safe, stay sane. Los adoro. Bye.